Totally insane. This reboot hurts my brainy. Animaniacs. The show's turned to crap. Hey everybody, Fatman here, and guess what we're talking about today. If you couldn't tell, I am a huge, both literally and figuratively, fan of the original Animaniacs, which ran from 1993 to 1998. And if I'm being truthfully honest, I consider it my favorite animated show of all time. So, when I heard that Animaniacs was getting a reboot to be distributed by Hulu in 2020, I was pretty damn nervous. That's right, not excited, nervous. For one thing, the original show had a pretty successful run, totaling 99 episodes in a direct-to-video movie entitled Wacko's Wish, so what more was there really to do with these characters? For another, the phrase Hulu Original really only delivers on two emotions, and that would be laughter, and not the good kind, and cringe. And that's it. That's about it. It was a very small comfort to know that Rob Paulsen, Jess Harnell, Tress MacNeille, and Maurice LaMarche were all coming back to voice the Echo, Wacko Dot, and Pinky and the Brain, respectively, as well as Steven Spielberg stating he was returning to helm the project, so why was I still so on edge? Well, just take a look at the roster of classic cartoons that have come back for another go-around at it. Powerpuff Girls, Ben 10, Teen Titans Go. Nothing that has ever returned from the grave has come back and stuck to the original roots of the show we loved, usually changing things for the worse in the process. And they have essentially served and continue to serve the dumbing down of a beloved property. So where does the 2020 iteration of Animaniacs rank among these? Well, I've read a lot of reviews, I've watched a lot of reviews, and most reviews that I've read or seen usually, if I'm averaging it out, put this show at about 70% good to 30% bad. So where does that line up for me? I'll say 5% good to 95% bad ratio, and I'm not even kidding, sadly. And even that percentage is being a little generous on the good end of things. Yeah, that's right. I thought this reboot was hot garbage, and that is why a video on my thoughts of a 13-episode season that came out in November 2020 is arriving now in early 2021. I quite literally had to take tolerance breaks because I just couldn't do it anymore. It's getting kind of hot and the opinion is intense, so I'm going to take all of this off so I just don't look like a giant tool anymore. That's damn it.
Really? Where the did you even get that?
I don't know. I literally cannot remember. I got it as a gift a while ago, and I can't even remember who from.
Is this official merchandise, or is this like...
I don't know. It's probably some fan-made I mean, it's the Echo, Wacko, and Dot is Powerpuff Girls, so it's probably fan-made.
It's horrible, but it's also great.
I know, yeah. That was my exact thoughts. That's why I never really wear it. I'm like, it's stupid, but it's kind of like awesome in a way. I don't know.
Okay.
But... I'm going to break this down into sections, so strap in and get ready because this show is a lot dumber than advertised. Let's talk about the animation. Yes, believe it or not, animation is pretty damn important to an animated show. Whereas the original show had lush, water-painted backgrounds and vibrant colors, this reboot has a cold CGI, almost flash animation look to it. So many details are skipped over and there's no longer multiple eye-catching things to pay attention to in the background. The show is still bright and colorful, but it all feels, I don't know, reduced in a way, almost like it's been run through a filter first. The human characters also look absolutely hideous in this thing. There's a big emphasis on something that I feel like a lot of modern cartoons do, and that's just making their characters look kind of gross, if that makes any sense. There are a lot of awkward animation decisions where the human characters just look really big and dumb and muscly, and they just look really heavily over-exaggerated, and as well as a lot of butt shots. I know that sounds really weird, but it's an extremely cheap comedy tactic employed pretty much universally in kid shows these days. Emphasize the character's butt, make it stick out or jiggle, have the cheeks move up and down. I really wish I was kidding, but I'm not. That happens a lot, like a lot in this reboot. I'm serious too, that's this thing that happens like a lot. Like, it's really awkward all the time. If we're being fair, the Warners and Pinky and the Brain themselves still look pretty good. They don't really differ too much from how they were animated in the original run, but something about the Warners' movement feels a lot more limited than it once was. They're not really allowed to stretch out and move in as zany and as a slapsticky way as they used to be able to. As for whatever reason, I feel like the animators tried to ground their movements more in realism, and that just doesn't really work for this kind of show at all. Like that's where a lot of the more modern Tom and Jerry stuff becomes really stupid, because these are stretchy, wacky characters and you're kind of grounding it to be more realistic, which just doesn't translate to funny for stuff like this. For the next thing, I want to talk about the music, because Animaniacs and music go together like peanut butter and jelly. I don't feel like anybody could deny that at this point. I mean, they could, but they'd be wrong. The music from the original show, I shit you not, is literally the only reason I know all of the presidents and all of these state capitals. I did not learn that in school. It wasn't fun, it wasn't catchy, there was no Turkey in the Straw in the background. That is like my history and geography lesson, Animaniacs. That's why I know these things. But there were so many other catchy original songs. The Census Song, What Are We, The Ballad of Magellan, Hello Nurse. There was a lot of really cool music in the original, and I won't even BS you guys here. I'll go back and I'll listen to it every once in a while too. I enjoy it. I actually enjoy the music. Give me that look. None of that magic is actually ever really captured here. I mean, a lot of it just kind of falls flat. There were only 2 songs I liked from this reboot, and I liked them for 2 completely different reasons. The first being the Reboot It song from the very first episode. This was the only song out of this whole show that I caught myself humming along to afterwards, and it was pretty creative, it was funny. It had a lot of really funny details in it. It was good. It served the purpose it needed to serve while still being catchy. The other one would be Dot's song about all the first ladies, which was really the only song featured throughout the entire show that felt like something the original would have also done, because obviously it matches up pretty great with the President's song. And the joke at the end of that song was one of maybe 5 laugh out loud moments I had throughout the entire show. The rest though, look, obviously Animaniacs has always satirized pop culture. This is nothing new where this series is concerned. But while it used to be creative and entertaining, it was outside of the box, and even subtle most of the time, this reboot kind of drops all pretense and just gasses forward a way more in-your-face approach to, I mean, not just the music, literally everything, but it's especially recognizable when they're doing the music. There's a rap battle. Yeah, that happens. Dot has a J-pop song at one point, and it's really obnoxious. It feels so cliche and like something you would see in a CT or DreamWorks movie or a newer Family Guy episode than something you would have seen on Animaniacs. The worst offender, in my opinion, as far as the music goes, though, is the check my script notes because I don't know how to pronounce this word. Suffragette City? That word. Help me out, guy. Suffragette, right?
Suffragette.
Whatever, we'll go with
Suffragettes.
Whatever. I'll do that.
Suffragette.
We'll call it Suffragette City. This song actually started out with a lot of promise and is about the rights for women voting, which happened timed up on the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. And again, that feels like something the original show would have tackled. Then out of just nowhere, it takes a tonal shift and turns into a song about cartoon characters getting the right to vote and sees Dot rounding up like the Flintstones and a bunch of other cartoon characters, it's kind of awkward in a way. There was admittedly a big laugh for me here in a blink and you'll miss it moment where she kind of waves aside recruiting the Lunatics. And if you are one of the 5 people that remember what that show is, like that got me. I was like, holy like.
I actually enjoyed that show.
Me too. Like, I never expected to see those characters again. The rest, though, I'm just gonna be honest, it doesn't make any sense to me. They gather up a band of cartoon characters and they go storm the Capitol. You can leave that joke. I know that's political, but that's a relatively harmless joke to...
Was that actually a joke, or did this...
No, that happens.
The f***?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a law gets passed where cartoon characters can now go vote, and Porky Pig pops up at the end to close the song out, and he's just, that's democracy, folks. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I'll be honest, I don't understand it, and that's maybe why I hate it. But somebody explain this to me. Why is that funny? I don't understand why this is funny. What's the joke? Well, what's the message? I really don't get it. Maybe somebody can explain that to me, because I don't understand why that's even supposed to be funny. All that being said, hey kitty, the music and the score all just fall kind of short. There's nothing really memorable. There's nothing catchy. There's nothing you're going to be singing to yourself after seeing it. And there's definitely nothing I'm going to be coming back to. Alright, I'll come back to you. For my next point, I'd like to talk about the comedy, which is a ginormous aspect here. The next portion kind of hurts my soul, I will be honest. So, the original run of Animaniacs balanced a pretty wide variety of humor if you think about it. There were pop culture references, sight gags, smart commentaries, slapstick, educational humor, jokes based solely on characters, running jokes. It was a nice little mix of a whole bunch of styles. In this reboot, however, there are really only 2 types of jokes, and that's about it. They incorporate some other stuff, they blanket some other stuff, but all the humor really stems from just 2 different types of avenues here. One being that, yeah, this is indeed a reboot. This is a reboot. It's not, this happened already. There's an original. This is the reboot version of that. This is a reboot. Did I mention that this was a reboot at some point? They run this into the ground, and if you're not laughing at it by the end of the first episode, I have very, very, very bad news for you. This can get a couple of chuckles here and there, but when the root joke is, the Warners know they're in a reboot, it wears thin very, very quickly. It becomes grating after a while. I know the show has always been very meta. Hell, by the end of the original run, there were no more fourth walls left to break. But it gets to the point where the meat of the comedy is the Warners just referencing old gags they have done. The characters never really develop much, which kind of gets rid of a lot of the more character-driven humor. And the slapstick and one-liners revert to being a more, LOL, that was so random, that it's even hard to reference them in terms of anything really that funny, because it's usually just a character spouting something stupid to get a shock reaction from the viewer. Due to Pinky and the Brain also being literally the only side characters on this show, the only running gag comes from them, and that starts to get extremely humorless by the end of the 3rd episode, especially where Pinky is concerned. He's less endearing and more of a Peter Griffin type, or Eugene from Bob's Burgers, where his sole purpose is to spit out some quip that makes no sense and has absolutely nothing to do with anything. A trait really also found in Yakko a lot, which was pretty disappointing. I'm not saying Pinky obviously was ever a genius, but he seems written to be a lot more frantically idiotic here. The only character that felt like they remained true to their original incarnation, for me at least, was Wakko. Even when a Warner short was enjoyable to watch, it usually wasn't funny. It's like they had to sacrifice the comedy aspect to be mildly entertaining as a short, or it was funny, but the short was bad. They even set themselves up a lot for scenarios that could be really funny. They're just never executed to their full potential. One of my favorite episodes from the original run was the Hercule Yakko episode with the infamous fingerprints joke, where the Warners are detectives on a cruise ship and have to solve the mystery of the missing diamond.
Number 1 sister, dust for Prince. Dr. Wakko, it could be a long night. Better order some pizzas.
I'd like 42 pizzas, 6 with no crust.
Now, do you have any enemies?
No.
Do you have any creditors?
No.
Well then, do you have any requests? Thank you so much. Way down, Jack, up on the Nile River, Jack.
I found prints!
No, fingerprints.
I don't think so.
And they do that again here. They bring that same scenario back. They bring that same character back. But it's just the show jumping up and down, pointing a finger in your face and going, remember that? Remember that? This is a reboot. We did this. Remember this? I don't know why any of the other side characters, aside from Minerva Mink and Hello Nurse, weren't bought back. But in small defense of this, they do an episode revolving around this called Good Warner Hunting, and it is far and away the best episode of this entire thing. It has a hilarious ending, and it's pretty much the only Warner short that I felt straight up could be dragged and dropped into the original run of episodes and make sense and be funny. They do try a few new segments here, but whew, good God, when you think of how unique the character dynamics and setups were between characters like Slappy the Squirrel, Rita and Runt, Mindy and Buttons, even one-offs, or just a couple of offs that didn't really appear that much, like Minerva Mink. It was funny, it was very creative, they were unique. Here, these new segments just fail so belligerently hard in comparison. There's Starbox and Cindy, which revolves a miniature alien falling into the hands of a girl named Cindy, and if anything is giving me Pinky Elmira and the Brain vibes, then it's bad. It's inherently bad, and I don't want to watch it. And it's just like, it's surprisingly awkward. Like, it shouldn't be this awkward, but it is. The audio, I don't know if this was just me, because the audio played fine on everything else I watched, but it's also weirdly off here, and I really don't know what to pin it, especially where Cindy is concerned. Then there's the incredible gnome in people's mouths, and you can, if you listen closely enough, you can literally hear the bottom of the barrel being scraped. Finally, we lead into our second of the two jokes here that all the other jokes stem from. And I really want to stress this point. I want to preface this by saying that I am fully aware that Animaniacs did political humor in the original run. I know this. Mostly though, even if they were poking fun at a sitting candidate, it was more poking fun at their character. Bill Clinton playing the saxophone, Ronald Reagan quoting movies in his speeches. It was less of a humor based on specific policy and issues, and more of a humor based on character, a thing they did very well back in the original run. Even when there was a political message, which wasn't often, by the way. I've heard a lot of people come out in defense of this and go, the show was chock full of political humor back then. No, it wasn't. Go back and watch it. Trust me, look at what I'm wearing. I've seen it a lot. I've watched the whole series a lot. It was never, ever a bunch of political humor or political jokes. That didn't happen. That happened once in a blue moon. That they usually happen in a throwaway line. There weren't episodes dedicated to things like this. Go back and watch it. That being said, hey kids, do you want Trump jokes? How about what your childhood favorite cartoon characters think about gun control? Russian collusion? Trump? Manspreading? Trump? Correct pronoun usage? Or how about Trump? It legitimately feels dirty to talk about these things in relation to this show. The message is so in your face and obvious that they're literally never leaving it up to you. They're never looking at you and going, hey, what do you think? We're in the middle. It's a character, usually Dot, ham-fistedly telling you what to think and making sure that you as the viewer know that if you're on the wrong side of the fence, you're wrong and you're a bad person for thinking that way. The Trump clops is really cringe-inducing, and I even thought the joke of Trump's ego being the only thing big enough to beat out Odysseus's ego was pretty funny on paper. That works. That's funny. Trump obviously has an ego. of what billionaire doesn't. Again, it's delivery. This show suffers from really, really poor delivery, something that was almost never a problem before. This, point blank though, I will say just doesn't belong here at the end of the day. It's never funny or educational. It's never neutral or thought-provoking. You just spend a handful of minutes being slapped in the face by the writer's political opinions when all you're trying to do is watch a cartoon primarily aimed at children that adults enjoy as well. And for my final point, I want to talk about the hypocrisy of this show. I know it sounds like a stretch, and I am fairly aware that I probably sound and look like the fat internet troll they are making fun of in the opening theme song, but bear with me here. And speaking of, let's start with the opening theme song. The line, "Dot is cute and Yakko yaks" has been replaced with "Dot has wit and Yakko yaks." Normally, I mean, who cares? But that is making a leap in logic that Dot's character was only associated with being cute. Yes, that was a big part of her shtick in the original run, but she was always portrayed as a tough-as-nails girl as well, and if you don't believe me, I will point to the "My name is Dot, call me Dottie and you die" line. She was also often portrayed as being a lot smarter than either of her brothers, and I know that's not much of an achievement when you're talking about Wacko, but Yakko was pretty smart. She would straight up you up if you pissed her off. I thought it was dumb that this was changed, but it was also relatively harmless, until the episode aptly titled The Cutening, which specifically revolves around Dot gaining the ability to turn anyone or anything cute. There's no lesson at the end either, mind you. There's no realization that things don't need to be cute to matter. She just tires of everything being cute because that takes away from her cuteness. So why even bother to change that line if you're going to make a whole episode revolving around that? The second offense of hypocrisy is also rooted in the theme song. The section where they would normally talk about all the other characters, you know, good feathers band together, Slappy whacks them with her purse, has obviously been taken out because nobody else is in this thing, and has been replaced with gender balance, pronoun neutral, now we're ethnically diverse, and like, hooray? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like people are looking for these wins you know, more in like real life and not a children's cartoon. This is also why the Hello Nurse character was completely removed from the show, because she was deemed too sexist, even though there is a song in the original run talking about how she speaks a bunch of different languages. She's an adept chemist, and she has an IQ of 167, 157, something like that.
A career, there's not a thing that she couldn't do. Oh, she's alert, she's aware, she's got legs like a stair and 157 IQ. She has several PhDs, speaks fluent Japanese, and her shoes will always match with...
But no, she was sexist, despite the fact that we pointed out how smart and driven she was as a person. But don't worry, there's gender balance. We also find out in the very first episode that Mr. Plotz, the chairman of the board, is no longer around, and I don't think they gave an in-show explanation for this. But he has been replaced by a strong, independent woman of color, so there's that. Do you know how I know that she's a strong, independent woman? No, it's not because her character is well developed, or she has a dominant presence in the show. We actually only do see her in a couple of episodes, and that's about it. It's because the other characters on the show keep telling me that she's strong and independent and needs no man, which is fine. But I will just go the route to say, if you have to point that out to me whenever she's on screen, then you've done a bad job developing that character, and you're only shoehorning them in for fear of backlash from a vocal minority. If you can't come across to me that she's strong and independent every time she's on screen on her own without somebody pointing it out, then it's not special and it just shouldn't be there. If the only way I know she's strong and independent is because you keep telling me she is, that's a poor job, and it leaves no impact. And it honestly tanks what you're trying to do. Finally, we have the bun control episode, which is symbolic of literally everything I despise about this reboot. If you want to know why I hate this so much, whether you're pro-gun, anti-gun, it doesn't matter, I wish we didn't even have to have this conversation, but this reboot is making us have this conversation. Doesn't matter what side you're on, go watch that. You will know exactly why I hate this. Just by the title of the episode, I feel like you can guess what this one is about, despite the fact that the characters think they're making some super deep metaphor. They're not. It's right there. The entire episode is essentially just a setup to make sure that if you own a gun, or even if you have any interest in owning a gun, you're a piece of shit. I hope you know this. You want a gun? You're crap. You're garbage. And there's no room to argue that point either, as far as the characters or the show writers are concerned. You're bad. Guns are bad. You're bad. I hate you. The man selling the buns is portrayed as like the biggest scum of the earth. And well, the entire episode was extremely cringe-inducing. It was the end exchange between Yakko, Wacko, and Dot that shifted the line from this is really cringy to now they're being hypocritical. And it really, really hammered home how vapid these writers' approach to political issues is, for me. As they send the buns and the bun owner off to Australia, because yeah, that worked there. He says that he should be able to legally own or sell his buns. To which Yakko replies with, well, you can't do that here, pal. This is a kid's show. Just like maybe a gun control episode is inappropriate for a kid's show in general, maybe? I'd really like to think they even did that on purpose, but the next line immediately disproves this. Wacko is confused about the moral of the story, and Dot, in frustration, proclaims that this is the last time she's doing any thinly veiled allegories on the show, and if that was a thinly veiled allegory, then I'm thin. Animaniacs 2020 was a really, really, really rough watch for me. I adored and still adore the original run. I love the original. I own all the seasons. I own the movie. Obviously, I got some threads. I can quote that show up and down from memory. I know the songs by heart and these characters and the show. The original one will always have a special place in my heart. I can't deny that. This reboot, though, strips away what's so special about the original show. They have no idea. It's clear they don't even know why it mattered to a lot of people to begin with. And they instead focus on pleasing the vocal minority who think television shows primarily aimed at children need to be politically correct or have some meta policy issue in it. And it just strips away what made the original show so funny and so unique. Amidst a bunch of other great shows at the time, this even still stood out as a little bit better than most of them. And it just leaves it as such a sloppy, incoherent mess of what this once actually was. I can't wait to finally put this behind me. I'm not happy that I even toughed it out, honestly. And I know they're signed on for one more season. I really don't know if I can stomach that, and I clearly stomach a lot. So that was ZeitgeistOG. I've been Fatman. That was my review for Animaniacs 2020. I know a lot of people enjoyed it. I kind of only decided to make this video because I haven't really seen many videos of people talking about this negatively. Most people enjoy it, and I mean, that's fine. Enjoy whatever the hell you want. That's cool. Glad you liked it. I hated it. I will always kind of hate it. I might watch an episode or two of season 2, but I really don't want to. I have no desire to. If you enjoyed this, please like it, share it around, even if they differ from mine, because I'm not Animaniacs 2020. Feel free to discuss this with me in the comments. And maybe even hit that stupid little bell to stay up to date on all notifications on your way out. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.